Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today I'm going to continue where we stopped previous class, which is on a property ownership in Islam lah. Okay, basically kita dah go through lah apa maksud property tu kan. So semua orang dah tahu dah property tu contoh macam rumah, tanah, semua tu. So hari ni saya just nak recap apa tu property, macam apa tu property in Islam. Tak sure lah previously korang faham ke tidak kan, tapi I just want to recap. So property basically is when an individual obtain a goods that he or she can save or use for quite some times. Means that macam rumah tu kan, you nak guna bukannya sekejap je, you mesti guna for such a long time. So to create a value, when you bought a property, to create a value, you can actually sold the property, or you can gain the compensation from the property itself. Tapi apa tu property in Islam? Okay, property in Islam basically the keyword is exclusive association. Means that the owner have exclusive right to own or dealing in any way, as long as it is not forbidden. Not forbidden means should be in halal way lah, should be in Islamic way, should be restricted to Syariah compliance. How? Macam mana? Mestilah the acquisition certain property that you own mestilah through legal way. And then mestilah there's no legal obstruction. You have no legal obstructions. As long as you have no legal obstructions, so you have the right on your own property too. And then when you acquire it, you need a proper authorization. Macam tak adalah simply acquire without a proper authorization macam tu. And then from the acquisition itself, you must gain a political significance. That is what property in Islam means that even though you have the right to own your property or dealing in any way, but it must be in accordance to Islamic law. Okay, basically this 4 point, it is actually the implications. Okay, implication, which is on slide this one. I just summarize it into 4 points, but if you want a better understanding, you can read it yourself. Okay, next is on the right. The right here is basically the right on our property. So there's a few points here you can actually read by yourself and go through lah by yourself. Okay, on the ultimate ownership, we have go through this actually. So the ultimate ownership, we already know semua barang dekat dunia ni adalah milik Allah, betul tak? So semua adalah milik Allah. Kita as a human or a slave of Allah, we just have to obey His order. Kita just have to even though kita own the property, kita just have to utilize or manage what have been given to us from Allah wisely, in accordingly. Macam tu lah, in related ataupun must be in compliance with the Islamic law itself. Okay, obey His order, tu dia punya keyword lah. Okay, move to the type of ownership. There's 3 type of ownership, which is private ownership, okay, community ownership, as well as state ownership. Private ownership, okay, bila you dengar private, mestilah something that is owned by private entity ataupun private individuals. Siapa private entity tu? Who is non-government ataupun who is a legal entities to the property yang dia own tu lah. Okay, of course lah kan. So whoever, when you nampak je private ownership, means that whoever that ataupun anything that is owned by a private entity. And of course, when they own the private entity, they own without a legal obstructions. Macam saya cakap tadi lah awal-awal tu kan. Okay, that is a private ownership. Dalam slide you boleh tengok contoh private ownership, which ada dua, the sole ownership as well as the joint ownership. Kenapa dua-dua ni? It is because macam sole ownership, dia seorang je, tak ada involvement of any government pun. Same goes to joint ownership. Joint ownership, it just related with the whoever yang partner with you lah, whoever yang join with you. So it's not related with any public institutions or anything. Okay, as for community ownership, okay, you hear about community. Community is all about society. Means that the things or the property or the object is owned by the society. Okay, owned by the society or community lah. Macam you nak bawa balik dia punya tajuk community ownership tu. So you just tulislah owned by the ownership ataupun community. So for example, udara yang kita sedut, water, a grass. So basically all of this thing is hak kepunyaan orang ramai. Semua orang tak marah pun kalau you nak sedut udara kan. So unless it has been converted to private entities, unless the water tu macam have been bought by a private entities, like to make it a private lah. Macam you kena bayar that water so that it become a private entities macam tu. So you have no longer have the right on the property. Sebab you kena bayar dah. Okay, move to the state ownership. State, whatever state, it calls government ownership. Ataupun kalau you nampak state je, mean it's related or similar goes or same meaning as the government ownership, or sometimes they call it as public ownership. Okay, when you see or you saw government ownership, means that it's owned, monitored or organised by the state itself. Of course lah, macam tadi community it's free, dia tak manage by siapa-siapa. But for private, of course, private communities atau private entity yang manage dia punya property. But for the government ownership, the government itself lah yang monitor and organize the ownership or the property itself. And then dia said, dia cakap dalam slide ni, dia cakap it cannot be immediately privatized, meaning that every government property we cannot own, ataupun a private entity cannot own immediately, meaning that kita bukan senang pun nak own a government institution, betul tak? So macam benda tu milik government, kita tak senang untuk kita, a private entity, to own a government institution ataupun a government company lah, because we need to go through certain like rules or requirement, something like that. Okay, as for the limitations of ownership, okay, macam ni lah, kita memang ada right on our property, memang kita manage our own property, but dia ada limit di situ. Okay, limit dia of course for the first one, because all of the things ataupun all of the property belongs to Allah. Okay, we are only a slave, we are only here to manage the property ataupun the resources that have been given to us, right? So and then relate back with the three economic activities criteria, the criteria that actually a Muslim ataupun Islamic economic must follow, which is every productions, every property have to follow this criteria lah, have to like, in a sense of necessary to the owner, comfortable as well as luxuries, but not too extravagant. And then of course it must be what they call it? It must be pull it back or give it back to the social benefit or the people who are in need. And then besides that, the next limitation is on the government. The government has the right to intervene, to confiscate, or to return the properties that are illegally acquired by us. Contoh. So, to the rightful owner. So, macam government macam ada right to masuk campur dalam property kita ataupun dia tarik balik kita punya property in case lah kita acquired illegally, in case kan. So that dia akan bagi balik property tu to the rightful person ataupun to the rightful owner. So government juga can limit ataupun eliminate any private asset that are ataupun dah dipenuhkan if the public interest viable, meaning that the government can eliminate any private asset once the private asset has actually fulfilled the public interest. So meaning that dia boleh jadikan private asset tu kepada public asset ataupun state ownership, dia punya lah. If the private asset tu has become a public interest asset, everyone need it like that lah. Okay, that is the limitation. So even though the private entity has the right in Islam lah, has the right to own the property in a legal way, of course, but the government also have the right on the private entity punya property. Okay, and then on the ownership constraint ataupun kekangan ownership tu ataupun sometimes they call it as condition. Okay, this is all the on the slide. You can read more in detail lah. Okay, on the ownership constraint related to the means of property. Okay, if you here you can see that the ownership constraint that related to the mean of property means that the property have to be permissible and legal acquired, meaning that acquired legally lah. So dekat sini, dekat dalam slide dia dah explain lah ataupun dia dah differentiate acquisitions macam mana nak macam acquired legal and acquired illegally. So acquired legally means that it can be acquired through hunting ataupun through a neglected land, meaning that if macam ada apa-apa ataupun ada property yang terbiar and then they acquired by someone lah, so itu dikira still legal. Okay, sebab dia dah terbiar, and then if illegally acquisition mean that something yang kita acquire without keadilan tau, macam tak ada keadilan, macam kita tak memainkan peranan justice dalam acquisition kita, that dah kira illegally in ownership in Islam lah. Okay, next is the constraint on the use of property, related to the use of property. Of course, whatever it is, we have to use our property wisely, kan? Wise conduct ataupun use wisely lah. And then of course, when we use wisely means that we have to prevent any negative behaviour. For example, extravagance lah. Kita tak boleh berlebihan dalam menggunakan property yang kita miliki itu. Dalam masa yang sama, kita kena encourage juga investment, meaning that kita kena encourage investment in our property to actually develop and also to actually promote growth on our property. And then besides that, Bila kita dah encourage investment, kita juga kena discourage holding. Holding ni kalau korang masukkan dalam Google Translate kan, maksudnya tu menimbun. Kalau nak dikaitkan dengan property, maksudnya when you accumulate a certain ataupun a certain number of property ataupun asset, you kumpul banyak-banyak, but then you didn't use it, you just hide ataupun you just store it away lah. So in Islam we cannot encourage that kind of thing lah. And then when we use the property, in case lah kita nak transfer the property, we need to have a legal transfer. Okay, macam for example inheritance ataupun a waris, kita kena cari waris yang kita nak transfer property tu lah kan. Contoh macam contoh macam kita nak pindah ke luar negara. Okay, bila kita nak pindah, dalam masa period yang sebelum kita pindah tu, kita kena tentukan waris, siapa yang akan acquire ataupun akan ambil alih kita punya property yang akan kita tinggalkan. Okay, next constraint is related ataupun on the condition imposed by the authority, or means that the condition for the authority lah. Okay, dia cakap kat sini, government can take private ownership, okay, to meet the need of the public. Okay, for example, government ni ada hak untuk nak ambil private entity macam saya cakap tadi, and then untuk nak senangkan ataupun untuk nak memenuhi public interest lah, untuk nak memenuhi kehendak masyarakat. Dan contohnya government runtuhkan rumah kat tepi jalan sebab dia nak bina jalan ke, ataupun dia nak bina masjid ke. Means that the masjid ataupun the jalan tu adalah untuk orang ramai juga. Tapi dia kena runtuhkan dulu rumah yang sedia ada kat situ, which is the private entity kan. Dia boleh lakukan sebegitu rupa, tapi dia kena provide a proper compensation, a proper pampasan. Sebab dalam Islam, kalau kita runtuhkan without a proper pampasan, means that itu dah dikira macam injustice lah kan. Sebab tu dia kena provide a proper compensation to eliminate the injustice, types of acquisition ataupun types of authority towards the property. Okay, the next constraint is on the wording of harm. Means that when we own something, we cannot cause harm to other people. Tapi ni basically it is actually a level of harm je. So nothing is about this. Dia just nak bagi tahu dia ada certain harm, dia ada likely harm, dia ada unlikely but significant harm, dia ada insignificant harm, macam tu je. Okay, next, move to the theory of right. Theory of right ni macam kita tahulah, kita kena relate back with the level of maslahah mursalah, which is we already go through the level of maslahah mursalah on chapter 1. Okay, there are 3 level, which is on daruriyah, hajiyah, not hajiyah, as well as tahsiniyah. Okay, please go back to chapter 1 slide if you want to know more ataupun nak revise balik what is the meaning of these 3 level. Okay, and then there is also a divisions of right. The first one, of course, the right by owner lah, kita lah, the right diri sendiri kita. Bila kita own property, not equity, the property, kita as the owner have the right on our property. But then the owner tu macam kena tahu atau kena sedar bahawasanya property tu juga adalah milik Allah kan. So dia juga dekat property tu juga ada right of Allah, dan ada the shared right, meaning that the property tu ada hak untuk berkongsi lah. And then the property tu juga ada right of human, meaning that anything that we own must be related back to the public of interest. I mean, must be related back with the need of the people ataupun humankind. Okay, what is the elements of the right? The elements must be recognized by Sharia, of course. Kan, the right tu must be recognized by Sharia. And then the right to use. Ya, mestilah kita dah own a property, mestilah kita ada right, ada hak untuk menggunakan property tu, betul tak? Kampuk penat je bayar. Okay, mesti responsible to the property. And then of course they have the right to own benefit from it. Saya bagi contoh. Contohnya saya bagi contoh macam one situation lah. Okay, saya nak beli rumah. So I have to beli rumah tu according to Syariah. So macam tak adalah in a negative behaviour, tak adalah in haram way ke apa. So firstly saya dah recognize ataupun dah beli rumah tu in a Syariah compliance manner. And then lepas saya dah beli rumah, saya ada hak lah untuk duduk dalam rumah tu, betul tak? So saya dah duduk dah dalam rumah tu. Dalam masa yang sama, saya juga kena jaga rumah saya tu baik-baik. Tak adalah macam buat dia je ada bersawang-sawang semua. So I have the responsibility towards the property ataupun the rumah yang yang saya dah beli tu. And then dalam masa yang sama, tiba-tiba for the past few years ke, macam saya rasa saya nak pindah ataupun nak pindah luar negara. So saya juga, contohlah macam saya nak jual balik rumah tu. So duit yang saya dapat tu, saya boleh ataupun I have the right to own the benefit from duit yang saya dapat tu from the property. That is the example lah. You can give it in kind of situation. Okay, the types of ownership. Tadi types of ownership juga. Betul tak? Ni type of ownership juga. Ada private, community, state ownership tu. Tapi sekarang ni type of ownership but based on the right. Tadi tu just type of ownership je. Okay, tapi based on the right ni, kiranya kita ada dua type of ownership based on the right. Satu is total ownership. Satu lagi is impartial ownership. Total ownership, macam total. Bila you dengar total mean dah summon ataupun complete ownership. Means that you have a total own ataupun a complete own on the property, as well as the right to use the property. So meaning that you own the property and you use the property. That is the total ownership means. But impartial ownership, you only own, but you have no right to enjoy it. That is the differences lah between total ownership as well as impartial ownership. Okay, impartial ownership ni pula terbahagi kepada 3. Okay, back to slide. Okay, you can divide it impartial ownership to easement right, ownership over things only, and ownership over usufruct only. Okay, for the first one is easement right, meaning that you have the right over immovable property, meaning that whatever property yang tak bergerak, yang cannot be moved, itulah maksudnya. So kalau example yang saya bagi ni jalan raya yang digunakan oleh semua orang. Okey, saya bagi contoh. Contohnya macam Ali kan. Okay, Ali sini. Ini Ali. Then seberang depan rumah Ali ada jalan. And then seberang rumah tu, seberang rumah Ali ada rumah Abu. Dua-dua ni, this one ada own toward the it has the right to use the road, but they actually didn't own the road, isn't it? Jalan ni bukan milik diorang, they just enjoy ataupun the use of the road. Betul? Okay. It's okay if you didn't understand ataupun still tak clear, nanti tengoklah video. Okay, on the ownership over things only. Over things only, of course lah, dia hanya own the property. Okay, owned by other person, but it is used by another person. Contohnya, macam kita sewakan rumah. Okay, bila kita sewa rumah, rumah tu digunakan oleh penyewa, betul tak? So, macam ni. Okay, so saya bagi gambar lagi. Okay, contoh. kita sewakan rumah ni. So sewa rumah tu digunakan oleh penyewa. So penyewa yang duduk dalam ni. But the owner tu hanya own je. Ni owner Owner ni hanya own the property but does not use the property. Penyewa ni, tenant ni yang menggunakan property tersebut. So basically ownership over things only ni is macam point of view of the owner lah. Dia macam owner ni ada ada apa tu? Ada property ataupun ada own a property only but the owner did not use it. Okay, as for the ownership over usufruct pula, terbalik. Macam tadi, owner tu hanya own the property but not use it. Tapi kalau yang ini, the right to use without having any proprietary right over the entire property. Meaning that, macam you boleh tengok the point of view of the penyewa itself. Macam tadi ini, the point of view of the owner. Sebab owner ada right over things. Yang ni don't have any right over things. Meaning penyewa tu boleh sewa, duduk, guna je. Tapi dia tak boleh, dia tak ada right to use. To dispose or to sold the property. Okay, I bagi different lah. Kalau ownership, dia ada right to dispose, to sold, and to use. But for usufruct, dia hanya have the right to use. Dia tak ada right to dispose ataupun to sold. Itu saja beza dia. So you can macam boleh nampak lah beza dia kalau saya buat macam ni. Okay? Okay, itu bezanya. Contoh macam usufruct ni, contohnya macam you pinjam buku. You just have the right to read the book, but you don't have a right to actually write on the book ke, jual balik buku tu ke, ataupun you koyakkan buku tu. You tak ada hak pun nak buat macam tu. Sebab you just pinjam buku tu. You just pinjam untuk baca. You cannot do anything with the buku. Okay, next is on the, this one actually, on the slide, actually, dia ada bagi example, okay. You can write it through. Okay, not write, read it through. Okay, next. This is the last subtopic, which is on the operational principle. It's in Islamic economic. If you remember, I already explained this early chapter lah, on the early chapter. But I only explain on these three: production, distribution, and consumption. Okay, if you want to know ataupun you want to refresh back your memory, go back to the last slide. Ataupun I ada bagi notes ni juga kan. So you go through back the thing that I have taught you. Okay, so sekarang ni kita just go through yang allocation part lah. So allocation part mean that cara ataupun dia nak cakap kat sini cara-cara you invest. How macam operational kan. So you have to allocate your money well lah. Kira je through what? Through partnership, through trading and commerce. You can go ataupun invest through a profit sharing risk, which ada dua, mudarabah and musyarakah. Ataupun you can invest through Islamic banking, which is dia prohibit riba, the use of riba. So dia macam just nak cakap itu je lah cara-cara you allocate or invest money in Islamic way. Itu sahaja untuk chapter 2. Thank you.